Amy, welcome to Career Conversations, Building Futures. I was really keen to speak to you because I wanted to talk more about sustainability.
Yep.
Can you tell us first of all a little about what you do in your day-to-day job?
Sure. So my name's Amy Brogan. I am the Exec Environmental Social Governance Director for GWS, Global Workspace Solutions for CBRE. So CBRE is the world's largest property and facilities management company, and I look after the ESG, CSR, sustainability, whatever we want to call it today, division for our local and data centres clients.
Fantastic. So, one of the reasons I was really keen to talk to you was because a lot of people were talking a lot about sustainability.
Yeah.
People are really passionate about it. It fits with people's values, it fits with purpose. We know it's the biggest issue that we face in society. But what we also know is there aren't many people who have spent a long time of their careers, unless they chose it at university and knew this mega trend was coming 10 years ago. So a lot of people that want to get into sustainability might not necessarily have had an educational background in sustainability. And the reason I was so keen to speak to you is you've been enormously successful and yet have come via a different route. Can you just talk a little bit more about that for people who are really interested in this?
Yeah, of course, and you're totally right. Just to build on that, you know, this wasn't a thing 20 years ago. So when I was going through university, it wasn't really an option. So I actually did my degree in psychology, which I think gave me a great understanding about the human mind and the behaviours of what we do. And then I went into procurement for 20 odd years. And again, I think that gave me a great understanding of business basics. So everything from change and transformation, you know, cost management, influencing and negotiation skills, those general basic kind of business skills that are required. And that gave me some additional options around what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. As you said, sustainability is a really key focus at the moment, and it's something I'm really passionate about. You know, I've got 3 kids myself. I want to leave this world in a place that, you know, they can enjoy it. They don't have to be jumping from natural disaster to natural disaster. And I think everybody at the moment has got a responsibility to make sure that we do leave the world in the way that we see it at the moment.
Really interesting that you've got 3 kids, because so have I, and that's exactly how I feel, is like, how can we individually make an impact, but also in the world of work, how can we make an impact? So what made you, at what point made you want to jump? Was it that an opportunity came up, or was it something that you clearly decided in your own career, this is an area I'd like to go into, or was it a bit of both?
Honestly, it was a bit of both. So I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, it was something that I have got a natural passion for. So it's something that in my personal life that I really drive and aspire to, something that I want to leave as a legacy for my children as well. So it was an area that I kind of maneuvered myself into really from a CBRE perspective. So I started taking, you know, accountability for a lot of our marketing and reporting around ESG, and started my own journey and pathway of making sure that I knew how I could impact the world around me, and especially from a CBRE perspective, the built environment and what we can do. So 28% of emissions come from the from building operations. That's huge, that's phenomenal. And therefore we've definitely got a seat at the table to make sure that we can support our clients with their ambitions and hopefully do good for the planet along the way.
So how did you go? Was it a lot of self-learning? Did you go out and do formal learning, or was it more just being curious? Was there specific things that you did to try and kind of increase your own knowledge?
I think naturally, if you're passionate about something, you're going to go out and you're going to be hungry to learn and find information. So honestly, I've done a lot of both. I've shadowed different energy engineers. I've done lots of formal training. I've read up a lot, and I've gone to different seminars and webinars about, you know, what are the best of the best? What's Google doing? And what's Microsoft doing? What are the big organizations that are leading the pack doing around this? And how can we support each other as a collective to work together for this great ambition?
So you obviously put time into your career, which is great. So what would you say, because people looking from the outside in would say you're hugely successful, you've been successful in one career as you've described in procurement, you're now in an amazing job where you're in sustainability, which is regarded as the next mega trend from a career point of view. What wisdom have you learned along the way? Well, what top tips would you give to other people to say, this is what I really have found what has worked for me?
So there's a couple of things. I think the first is go with what you're passionate about. We spend so much of our lives working, and if you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like hard work. It feels like you're going with a purpose and a mission to do something that means something to you. And make sure that the organisation that you join as well shares those passions. And you know, I'm so proud that CBRE, it's not a tick box exercise. You know, we're truly putting resource, financial implications, everything into making sure that we can achieve this, not only for ourselves, but for our clients as well, and really influence the greater sphere. Another thing that I've really found is that a lot of people, and I go to loads of strategy sessions, and a strategy for me needs to be a way to reach something that's hard to get to, that's an ambition, that's a long-term commitment. You know, it's not a 1 to 2 tactical set of goals that a company is going to achieve. It's a long-term aspiration. How are we going to jointly problem solve this massive issue together? That for me is what strategy is. Strategy is not a to B 1 to 2 year. It's a long-term vision and set of ambitions that you need to achieve. And again, I'd make sure that people start thinking about the long term. Sometimes, especially with an organisation with a hard P&L focus, you could be so 1 year driven, and with sustainability, that's just not an opportunity for us. We've got 10 years to really make sure that we leave this planet where it's meant to be. 10 years is quite a long time, but in the space of mankind, a millisecond of time to really get things right.
So, from your own point of view, is there any particular moment in your career that you felt this is a pivotal moment? Was there anything, or has it just been incrementally you felt like your career has always followed a similar trajectory? Or was there a moment you felt like, okay, I need to step forward, I need to lean in? You've spoken about having had 3 children. Was that a moment where you had to think about your career? How have you managed that?
Definitely. I think having 3 kids really focuses your mind, doesn't it, in terms of not only the work-life balance, but what you want your legacy to be and what you want to teach your children. And I think I pretty much, you know, I got to the point where I was online for CPO, and I thought, do I really want to go down like the CPO route, or do I want my delivery to the world to be more than that? And therefore, that's where I took a step back and thought, okay, let's focus on this, and how actually can I, as an individual, support not only the company and the country and the wider greater good to actually do something meaningful and with purpose.
So we talk about, so obviously you're a very successful one within your industry, and we talk about wanting to create across the built environment, across all organisations and employers, a place where people feel comfortable to be themselves. And that comes from a place of diversity, everyone feeling included, feeling that there is equality. How do you think we can encourage even more a diverse range of people to choose this as a career, who might not think of the built environment necessarily as a place that they would think of having a career?
Yeah. I'd say D&I is so important. It has to be the foundations of a culture of an organisation, and building a culture needs to come both top down and bottom up. For me, if you have a look at some of the recent studies, gender stereotyping happens at around 7 or 8 from a job perspective. Yes. And that's why it's so important that we go into these schools, and we work with an organisation called I Can Be. So I will go into schools, and schools will come to me, and we'll talk to 7 to 8-year-old girls and those from underrepresented groups around the range of different opportunities that they've got available, so they don't just automatically think of those very, stereotypical pillars that, men will do and women will do. And then from a representative perspective, we need to make sure that we've got gender representation at board level and ethnic minority. And CBRE is so proud that we've got 40% ethnic minority on the board, which is absolutely fantastic. And there's loads more that all of us can do to make sure that we've got an equitable society.
Absolutely, and we know that more diverse teams make better decisions because you're not all thinking in the same way, but it's about how we together make it clear that it's a really appealing industry and that what we do has social impact. I was somebody, again, that didn't come from a construction property background, who came into it during the course of my career, and all I ever think of is we make such an impact in that everything from building roads and building schools and hospitals to, of course, maintaining them, and we have a societal impact. And how do you think we could better promote what we do? Or do you think already we're actually quite good as an industry at promoting the impact we have socially? Or do you think there's other things that we could be doing as an industry?
I think there's always going to be a huge amount more that we can do. From a FM perspective, there's 3.5 million people in the UK in FM. That extrapolates out about 8 million dependents that we've got a responsibility and a duty to support, and those numbers don't even include those people who interact with our buildings on a day-to-day basis. So it's really about raising awareness and building those behavioural changes when we impact everybody along the way. And social value can be driven in so many different ways, from supporting underrepresented groups, getting youth employment up, philanthropy, charity, volunteering, you name it and we can do it. And I think we've all got a personal responsibility to making sure that we're looking after those around us.
Yeah, and there's a movement particularly on the construction side, which is called #LoveConstruction, which I love, and it's all about positive social images of construction to try and break those stereotypes of what a career might be. I think possibly on the property side it might naturally be seen as a more maybe attractive career opportunity, but overall we still want to obviously attract more people. So coming back round to the green impact of what we do, what day to day are you proud of at the moment that you're working on, that you said you really want to make a difference, you said it's very clear for you need to have that purpose to your job. What is it that you're excited about now, about working on?
It's about building that strategy and really sorting out the problem at hand. If we have a look at the lifespan of Earth, we've been on the Earth for about 3 seconds if you extrapolated it down to a day. That's 3 seconds, and in that time we've pretty much brought ourselves to the 6th mass Earth extinction. We now need to put meaningful change in place to make sure that this world is where we want to leave it for our children. So that is across everything from our decarbonisation and net zero roadmap to biodiversity, renewables, regenerative, social impact, water, you name it, everything around us needs to be harnessed to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the planet. So CBRE have got a target of 2040 to be net zero. In the UK, we've brought that forward 5 years earlier. We've now got a roadmap and a plan in place to meet that. And my job really is to go into other organisations and clients and make sure that all of our operations on their buildings are going to be as sustainable as possible. So everything across everything within that arena. And really it's that passion to make sure that we're reducing the fossil fuels, that we're electrifying wherever possible, that we're creating that journey and pathway to success that means something to me.
And what innovative things have you seen happening? Has there been any little things that you've seen either in your own supply chain or things that you've done that you've thought, wow, that is a really innovative way to tackle that problem?
There is loads, and it's interesting that you brought up the supply chain, because obviously Scope 3 is going to be one of our most difficult issues to tackle. And again, coming from a procurement background, that gives me another nuance. Harnessing the supply chain and those around us, both from a local perspective, but also from an underrepresented groups perspective, and harnessing that competition and that innovation is so fundamental. And there's loads of stuff that's coming out around IoT and technology, sensors, gateways, and making sure that the building is talking to one another as one whole ecosystem of different FM solutions that really can drive those benefits and those efficiencies in energy, carbon, maintenance all along the way.
So if I was to give you an imaginary magic wand and you were able to maybe make 1 or 2 major changes that you would say this is what's going to make the difference when it comes to achieving net carbon zero, beyond CBRE, just across the built environment, what would you love to do?
I would personally love to get involved with C-suites. So many people at the moment at the top are talking a great game, but they are not investing properly in it. They have not got the people at the top to make sure that they understand what change needs to happen and are bought into it to actually invest properly in everything along the decarbonisation journey. Are they thinking about carbon in terms of the cost of carbon, or are they just thinking about their P&L for that year ahead and what profit they're going to make? And it's again changing their mindsets to be that longer term solution and that longer term strategy that would really harness the biggest results. So many investors at the moment are seeing sustainability and ESG as one of the primary focuses over and above the financial situation when they're deciding where they invest their money. We need to now think about having, ESG and sustainability budgets, having teams that really are harnessing the strength and the opportunities, and that we're making sure that we disseminate that throughout the whole of the organisation as a purpose and vision, and then it goes down into the supply chain as well.
Do you find it, because you were talking before about you interact with your clients, what are their opinions on this when you go and start having conversations with them? Are they, I'm totally bought in, this is great, not sure how much is it going to cost me, or is it lots of varying degrees in between those two?
There's a varying degrees, but what I love about is the fact that there's always an open door. People always want to learn more about it. They want to know how they can make a difference, and what personal changes that they can make, and how they can make an impact, which is fantastic. And that for me is a door open, means that I can walk through it and I can help and I can support them. Everybody is on a different journey. Everybody's set different targets, different roadmaps. But again, it's that investment in it and making sure that it's a business priority as opposed to a nice to do to put at the back of the board report.
No, and I totally agree. So on this net carbon zero, let's take it to sort of UK level. Yeah. We have this target of 2050. What, if you could advise the government, what would you be saying right now? Please, we need to be doing this, or we need to be accelerating that. Is there one thing or two things that you think is important?
There's loads that I think the government need to do around legislation, everything from EV charging points to, reducing our fossil fuels and electrifying everything that we do. And then also going into kind of things like modern slavery and living wage to make sure that we're looking after our people alongside the net zero journey. There's a whole suite of things that I think needs to happen, but it needs to happen at pace.
Yes.
As I said before, 10 years, that's all we've got really to really make a meaningful change to stop the most catastrophic impacts to the country and the world as you see it. We don't want to have to keep dodging, earthquakes, etc., droughts, all of these horrible things that we see in the news on an ever-frequent basis at the moment.
So, Amy, you've been talking about your career and what's made you successful, and at the same time, you are a working parent.
Yes.
So, how do you make this work? You're extremely successful, and you've also got your working mum life. How do you marry the two together?
I think finding your work-life balance is always going to be tricky, and everyone's got different ways of doing it and different things that are going to work for them. You just need to make sure that you know what your priorities are and that you are there for the important time, and that the time that you've got as a mother, you use it effectively, and the time that you've got as a working woman, again, you use it effectively. And my children are everything to me, but I want to make sure that that they see me as a strong, independent businesswoman, and that they have got that representation to aspire to as well.
I totally agree, and it's good that we actually talk about both personas, because often when we're at home we're the mum, and when we're at work we're the worker, and often we don't actually say about how those two worlds collide and how we actually manage those two things, because they can't be kept separate sometimes. They actually do overlap each other.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And we do have to make it work, but it is good that we talk about it. I totally agree. I mean, I've got 3 boys, and I especially want, because I've got 3 boys, them to see that it's to have female role models who will go out and go to work, and that they see that for what their expectations are of their friends, of perhaps future partners, etc. That this is actually what the real world of work is like.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us today. I think the way in which your passion has guided your career is so clear, and your passion for what you do. And I love how passionate you are about the planet. And even though you've shared some stats today that have been quite hard to listen to, because that 3 seconds that you were talking about in a day, and how long we've been on the planet, but also how important it is that we change, I think is so important. But I also think your journey from being outside of sustainability, coming from a procurement background, but how you have pivoted and changed and now are so passionate about what you do, I think that's going to be really inspiring to people who maybe don't come from a sustainability background, but who really want to go into that as a career and want to make a difference. So thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.